You just mentioned social network analysis. Maybe some of our listeners or viewers don't know what it is. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
So social network analysis means that we look at the interaction between people. Mm-hmm. So how do they collaborate? How do they share ideas? Who communicates with whom? Which organization collaborates with which other organizations? So we look at relationships and ties between actors. And actors can be people, teams, departments, organizations, or even countries. So the whole range. And we use methods that can analyze and explain that. So for example, oftentimes managers think of their organizational chart. So they know the structure and who is responsible for whom. Mm-hmm. But if you look behind this organizational chart, you see that people interact very differently with each other. There are informal leaders, there's some opinion leaders, there's some in the periphery, there's some clusters here and some clusters there. And if you understand the network, how people collaborate, then you better understand how work really gets done, some people say.
So you're looking at the organizational reality.
One part of the organizational reality, yeah. Meaning that we look how people really interact and not how they should interact. Mm-hmm. And there's a gap.
There's a gap, and there's also, I think, is sometimes companies and also managers are really hesitant to look at this part of reality because it's mostly hidden. And you try to bring it to the light. You try to visualize or create knowledge about this kind of networks. Sometimes do you feel resistance from the companies?
So networks are in one way an understanding of power. Mm-hmm. And so some organizations do not want to understand this kind of interactions. Mm-hmm. Some people don't want to show who works with whom. So there are many aspects that you have to think of before you just analyze a network. First of all, it's always the question, what is the problem or what is the challenge that you have? And then trying to understand what could help for this specific problem. And sometimes doing a network analysis helps to understand who communicates with whom. But before we do that, we always include the stakeholders of different departments and asking what exactly can and should we ask for. So some people say it's interesting to see who energizes whom. Mm-hmm. And some people say, well, it's interesting who inspires whom. Sometimes it's interesting how these different functions collaborate with each other. So we have to clarify that, and then we analyze, and there are different methods how to analyze that to get a glimpse of this network. Mm-hmm. And then we don't just show the network, but we use that as one approach to better understand how the company works. Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like an X-ray of the company.
Exactly. So having an X-ray of a company is often used as a metaphor because you see things that you normally don't see on the surface. And I like the picture of an X-ray because if you just have an X-ray,
you don't know what you're looking at.
You have no clue what it means. So if I would have an X-ray of my body, it would like, oh, that looks interesting, perhaps, or awful. I don't know. But I can't do anything with that if I'm not an expert in that. So you need the person and the doctor, or you need the company and the consultant or researcher to make sense what is going on in this X-ray. And this is exactly what consulting or research could be for.
So you're the radiologist in this picture.
Sometimes I'm the radiologist, exactly, and I see this picture. And then I say, oh, I do not understand what is here. And then I ask the patient or the manager or the organization, like, what's going on here? So I see there is something, and I have some theories on that, but what do you say? And then oftentimes people say, oh yeah, that's George, you know, it's a new employee and whatsoever.
Yeah.
And then it makes sense. So we try to understand it from these different perspectives, and we need each other to make sense of a very complex problem, like how to collaborate.
This must be really interesting if you think about organizational change, where I as a consultant go in and I have no clue what's going on. Yeah? I have to do some analysis, maybe some stakeholder analysis, but this seems like it could really help me understand an organization right from the start, and really see where my actions are actually needed, where interventions actually are needed. And if I go a step further, I could imagine that we can also analyze what our interventions in the organization, what effects they actually have. So you can evaluate my own interventions in the company.
Yeah, so I think you can use social network analysis to think of interventions, so what is needed, and you can evaluate them. So if you say, for example, there's a merger and you have two different companies saying now they're merged, it's very easy to change or adapt the organizational chart. But do now people really collaborate with these different cultures, or do they not collaborate with each other? So you can evaluate that and really see if there was a change or not. And you can think of a change team. So for example, if you say you want to change an organization, you can't just go to everyone. You need some, as you said, stakeholder that are involved in the process. But who do you choose? And based on network analysis, you can say, well, these people are interesting because they are the influencers, they are the opinion makers. So you can really identify relevant stakeholders and assume that if they change and if they bring their knowledge into the process, then it has an effect on a larger part of the organization.
So we kind of bring, with this methodology, it seems like we bring more evidence base into the whole change process.
Yes, so you can use evidence and see what really changed from a network perspective. And you see behind the scene and see what is going on behind the surface. And here is the linkage between networks and improvisation. Because you have a planned organizational chart, or you have a planned script, like in theater. But if you have a look behind that, you see what's going on if something like self-organization or emergence happens. You see the process of innovation, you see the process of collaboration. And in improvisational theater and in social network analysis, we're really exactly there where the social melting pot happens. You see how people create or not create something. And so one of the founder of social network analysis and improv theater is Checo Moreno.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Yes, and I think it has a meaning why he was the first who wrote a book about improv theater, and he was one of the first who created sociograms. Because I think it's because of it's all about the relations between people. And if you're interested in that, I think that you will be interested in networks and in improvisation.